Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The challenger section finally calmed down. After 2 days of having 6 results out of 7, we only had 4 results today. There were 3 draws. So this recap going to be a little bit shorter. We're going to cover the 4 decisive games and then look at the section as the players are heading towards a rest day. The first game is the Battle of the Children. Faustino Oro, young Argentinian prodigy, trying to become the youngest grandmaster in the world. He's got another 50 odd days or so to do it. Versus Lu Miui, 15-year-old Chinese international master as well. Had a fantastic start to the tournament. Unfortunately, after 2 wins, she then lost 2 games. She's playing Faustino. And we start the game with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and now knight to c3. Now, normally, when you see the 4 knights, you can log off. It's going to be a draw. But not in this section. Never write off any of these players. We get what is considered to be the main line of the 4 knights, the Spanish variation of it, because it looks like you played a Spanish, but you were maybe a little bit drunk. The bishop ended up over here. You put the knight out instead of playing c3, and so on. Bishop to a4, rook e8, and now knight plonked into d5. No more games in the database. They are completely on their own, although they probably have some preparation. Takes, knight jumps out to e7, and now d4, striking in the center. Black is better. Funniest thing, white looks like they've got a decent position, and black's position looks stupid. White's better. Black's better. Faustino is slightly better. E takes d4, knight takes d4, and now c6. c4, bishop to c7, queen to h5, or looking for checkmating ideas. Not really, but you know, it's active. Now knight out to g6, knight to f5, and queen f6. White's got nothing. Bishop d2, rook e5. Now this to you and I would look like a skewer, but you lose your knight, so you can't do that. So you've got to play bishop to c2, defend the knight. Now d6, now g4. Whenever you have to do this, you're in trouble. So you have to forgive me, I've got a bit of pain in my mouth. C takes d5, c takes d5, and now bishop to d7, rook a d1, rook e8. Queen h3, we finally get the queen out the pin, but now bishop b6. And a4 is a mistake. You're down 5 minutes on time, and you're in a position where like none of your pieces can move. That is the inherent problem. Rook c8 now targets the bishop, and queen d3 does not solve your problems. The best move was bishop d3, because what you would have got is bishop d3, bishop takes a4, rook c1, rook takes c1, rook takes c1. Now bishop d7 would have, put pressure. Rook c2, bishop c5 would have been fine. You could play b4, come back, and you could do all of this. But that's not what happens. We get queen d3, rook takes knight. We sacrifice the rook because pawn takes. I can go here. Knight e5. Queen has to move out the way, and now I take. Sacrifice both rooks, but I can take here. Hit the queen, and now bishop here, and you borderline cannot stop checkmate against your king. So queen comes out to g3, knight f3 check. Lu Miui has to resign. Now we move on to the most heartwarming story of the day. e4, c5, a Sicilian defense, an open Sicilian between Ilian Rubers and Daniel Yufa. We get knight to f6, which is considered one of the main lines, knight to c3, and knight to c6. This is the classical variation of the Sicilian defense. We get bishop to c4, e6, bishop e3, and now a6. And, we're in... Lee Chess is considering this the Sozin attack, or the main line of the Sicilian defense. But it's a normal position. Queen e2, bishop d7, long castles, b5, bishop drops back, knight a5, f3, bishop e7, now g4. Short castles, h4. No more games in the database, at least the one I have, in the Masters database of Lee Chess. But yeah, this is a very typical Sicilian position where we've been left off. And Rubers has spent no time. 1 hour 56. They start with 2 hours on the clock. And this is a Sicilian position. You go this way, I go this way. And someone gets checkmated. Rook c8, typical Sicilian idea. You put the rook on the c file. You have the open c file, put pressure on it. And there are always ideas for this rook to sacrifice itself for this knight, grabbing on c3. Oh man, we went all the way to the beginning. So we're just going to fast forward through everything that we did. All the way up until here. Knight c4. The bishop jumps back to c1. And now queen a5. Queen a5 is a misstep. And now white is better. The better move here, which kind of keeps the game level, it is plus 1.2, is to play b4. And then what we would get is bishop takes c4, b takes c3, and now you can play b3 and you'll be okay. They might try and strike in the center, but it never works out for them, realistically speaking. Queen a5 is the wrong move order, because I can play h5, firstly, h6, and now f4. I continue my attack. You've lost that momentum. Now when you play b4, I can just go. I can sacrifice this knight because I'm about to open up your king a lot quicker. So takes, hit the knight. Knight sacrifices itself, but I sacrifice another piece. I've got two knights hanging that can just be taken. You can't really take either one of them. The best thing to do is to take this knight, not this knight. Other than that, queen d8 as a defensive measure. So we take this knight. Now knight d5 is the idea. Hits the bishop. Bishop is trapped. So we go here. And now e takes f5. Bishop takes f5 loses because we grab this. King slides over. And I've got h6. Takes. And now we shred everything open. Check. I get the rook. Queen over. I don't trade queens. And Ilian Robers just dominates this position. Check. And then check. And takes here, and we go on a king hunt, which ends in sensational fashion with after rook e1, knight drops back, check, king comes forward, and now we weave a mating net. Mate in 25, queen d6 check. It is never good news when the queens and the rooks are surrounding your king and your king is on f4. And Ilian Robers, I think, gets her first point of the tournament. Of course, there were 4 decisive games. This one was another one. Vendon Panesar versus Andy Woodward, an American prodigy. He's doing all right for himself. We get a Queen's Gambit declined, which we have seen a few times now. It is one of the preferred openings. Queen d2 is not preferred by the engine. It's not liked. We're already out of theory, according to my database at least. H6, now we take, queen takes, and knight jumps to the center. Very brave as white to play like this. Very, very brave. Because, like, black castles, and you've got nothing, and, like, there are pins and pieces all over the place. But, if white untangles, this might be an overcommitment, and maybe your pieces aren't as well coordinated as you think. So, bishop to f5 now. Short castles, a3, bishop drops back to d6, and now f4. And now you're running into problems. Queen e6, rook a e1, rook a d8, and now we take the bishop, and now we grab here. You might be like, wait, hang on, but that loses a knight, doesn't it? Here. No, because a fork. It's beautiful. e4 fork. Queen moves over, we attack the queen again, and now we take the knight. And now you drop back, and now I play queen b4, and despite all of that lovely tactical fight, and being up a pawn, white's better. White's worse, not better. White is worse. Black is better. Despite having this clump of central pawns, this knight well placed, putting pressure on everything, black is better. Slightly. Not a lot. You can see just below the orange line there. Black slightly better. Rook takes d5, picks up one of those pawns. Now queen takes c4, picks up another. And now queen d6. And now you've got to defend this weakness, and this weakness, and this weakness. You've got to defend them all. And I'm threatening mate. So, knight drops back to f3, defending mate. Rook takes on f5. And now rook e5. You have to be very careful, because I could sack the rook and get mate. Or, close to mate. So you got to be careful. So, rook e5 intercedes. Now, rook f4. Because you do not want to trade. Trading is probably better for white. Because d takes d5 closes everything down. And now you've got to play, you know, like bishop b6, check, king h1. You've got to go down this line. So rook f4 is fine. Now rook fe1, bishop to b6. You can't really defend d4 for that much longer. Surely it'll fall. Rook 1 e4, queen f6. Now queen e2. The defense of this pawn and the defense of the whole position is brilliant, but it's not sustainable. g6. Now rook e8 is a good idea, but after takes and king g7, you got nothing. And here you might be tempted to trade queens. That loses. Bishop takes d4 check, removes the defender, and then I take the queen. So you can't even trade queens. So you've got to play rook e4. Now queen f5. Now you can take this rook and I take back, and queen d1 loses. Queen d1 played in time pressure. Move 34, 1 minute on the clock for Vendon Panasar. Loses to one move only, g5. h3, h5. King h1, g4. The black king completely safe. I just march you down and I play f5. I take here and there's too many problems. You have to go for perpetual check, so check, and you've got to find it. You've got to try and find perpetual, but I can march my king all the way to f4 and I'm completely safe. Now a4, king goes over to g5. You can attack my bishop again. Bishop c5, a6. We take b takes a6. You might be tempted here to try and go for this, which is still completely winning. But Andy Woodward's like, I can take the pawn. It's a free pawn. Check, sacrifices the knight. We go for perpetual. Andy Woodward has got nothing else. If he cannot find perpetual check, he loses. And after king c6, he can't find it. And he can give a few more checks, but it's now mate on the board. Cannot be stopped. One more game to show you. Carissa Yep versus Vladimir Ivanchich. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, allowing the Nimso Indian defense, the most clinical test of the white position. g3, bishop takes, pawn takes. Now d6, bishop to g2, knight bd7, knight f3, short castles, queen e7. Knight d2 is a rare-ish move. I've only got 2 games in my database from here. One of them was knight d2, the other one was queen c2. But this position has been explored before, knight d2. Rook b8, no games found in my database now, but again, I don't have the largest database in the world. And you're going to have to outplay this position. Now, Carissa Yip hasn't spent a lot of time when she plays e5, so she's still in her theory. Ivanchich seems to have spent a little bit of time figuring out the position, getting to this point. So he plays rook e1. Now b6. The idea is simple. I'm also going to fianchetto and I'm going to remove this bishop, because then you will be left with light squared weaknesses. That's the simple game plan. Knight f1, bishop b7, and now f3. Strange as it is, white's better from an engine point of view. Sorry guys, my mouth's in a lot of pain. But you've blocked in this bishop. Your knight, every other piece you own is on the back rank, except this bishop that you've blocked in. How can white be better? So we get c5. Knight out to e3. Now rook fe8. Now knight out to f5. Queen f8. Now I suppose you're forcing black back, and you're creating, you know, weaknesses. You've activated this knight by a series of jumps. That's not one of the jumps, that one. And this, you know, pawn center is still very strong. Now g4, king h8, and now d5 is a very big commitment, because this bishop is dead. I don't know how you're going to use it. It's going to have to serve a defensive purpose like defending c4. This bishop is dead-ish. It could always maneuver to try and still create problems, because remember, it's targeting stuff. Defending stuff is not as useful as targeting stuff, in my point of view. a5, rook b1, and now rook ed8. And black just has to sit and say to white, you got to do something. Now I can bring the bishop back to c8. Rook to b2. h6. Bishop comes back to e3. White's got to do something. They have played like this. They've got to do something as the players continue to maneuver. and maneuver an h5 comes. And as black, you've got decisions to make. Knight f4 is a correct decision, because you can take and you can lose the pawn. But now I can get my knight back. Away from knight to d7. Now you can double up, and you can threaten this. That's brilliant. But I can put my knight here. You can take another pawn. But I'm getting one. In fact, I'm trying to fork you. So what's the plan? We take. Takes, knight takes, hits the rook. Rook drops back. I'll just play queen e7. Bishop f1. Now the knight comes back. Now I can play bishop e2. I swing my queen all the way over. You've got to come out this way. Now look at this. I'm trading off the light squared bishop. Now queen e3. I take. Knight takes is the wrong way. And all of a sudden, Carissa Yip is better. She's down a pawn. This knight is stronger than this knight. And frankly speaking, this king is safer. We offer the trade of rooks, by the way. It's horrible, either way. Because either you play like queen here. So, for example, queen c1 is not possible because you hang stuff. So you can't take. So you have to be passive and give up the open file. And now rook b2. And now the knight can come to g3. That's fine. I picked up a pawn. And you can come here. You're not mating my king. I can play queen b6. You can target the knight. Knight takes a pawn. Opens the file, but check. Knight comes in. I just go here. You've got nothing. Queen h3. Queen b7. Queen f3. Queen b2. And Carissa Yip has to find the right coordination. She gives a couple of checks. They do shuffle through the position a couple of times. She's got to find the right coordination because you're always worried about queen getting in here. Is the big problem. Because getting in here will force basically a repetition, because it will be check, here, back, and then if you push the pawn, firstly I take with check, and then I pick up the knight. Otherwise you've just got to repeat moves on these three squares. So she's careful not to blunder a draw here, which white can get easily. The rook goes to b2, king to h1, and now the pawn begins to march, as the position around white begins to crumble. We now sacrifice the knight, but you can't really take it. This looks tempting. Knight takes d5 looks tempting, but queen h4 is mating 2. So f5 is what's played instead, but now I play queen g5. And there are too many threats. Too many threats, and Ivanchich has to resign. Now let's change views quickly and look at the standings. And oh boy. It is a three-way lead at the top between Aiden Suleimani, who for once we didn't cover. He didn't win today, but he did make a draw. Faustino Oro and Andy Woodward, all playing fantastically. Then it's Marc-Andre Morizzi and Carissa Yip on 3.5 out of 5. Bibisara's on 3. The only two players scoring at even is Ivanchuk and Daniel Yufa. Lumio is on 2. Erwin Lamy and Max Varmerdam both on 1.5, and then 1 point each for Vladimir Ivanchich, Vendan Panesar, and Ilian Robers, who scored her first point today. We are so happy for her. And that's how it all stands after 5 rounds of the Tata Steel Challengers 2026.